Hi, St. Germain. I have a question. You addressed some of it earlier today.
There were about 4 questions, but go ahead.
I'll get up every month and talk to you. You know what is said, your life is your art. I had an experience several years ago, and I've worked with it. I can't say I fully understood it. Today, what you addressed, moving into energy and bringing the potential for peace, that helped me understand what I can do with this particular experience. And maybe that's it, but I'm going to ask the question for myself and for all of Chambra. The situation I experienced several years ago was being on an airplane with a supposed terrorist and being, that whole scene with my children. So that was a very intense opportunity to take a look at, what is going on in our current world? What can we do with this? So now obviously we can go in and expand that potential. Can you help me take a look at this experience from a higher perspective? Is there more we can do with this? And also, for all of Chambra who have had these experiences, will have these experiences, what are we doing with these? And how do we help our children when they have come into these very young and very open?
Okay. Stated 4 questions. All contained within one. I keep this indeed, I'm having fun. I'll make this quite simple. This is all of Chambra, but I'm using your situation as a real life story. Your presence in situations literally changes the potential of the outcome of the situation. You could be sitting on an airplane with a potential terrorist, and just you being there, your presence, can change the potential outcome. It's not that you're trying to inflict your will on it, but how do you say it's a crude way of putting it. It shines a light on an otherwise dark situation. It opens new pathways of consciousness that weren't there, that wouldn't necessarily be there if you weren't there. So often, Chambra, you find yourself, for instance, suddenly driving down the road and lost and not sure why you're there. Perhaps your physical as well as your energetic presence needs to be there. You find yourself in unusual circumstances and wonder how you got there, because you were led to that situation knowing that you add a new energy element to an old energy conflicted and very potentially harmful situation. Literally right now, as I talk, right now, there are Chambra in Israel and in the Mideast who are finding themselves suddenly in a place they're not sure why. They're finding themselves bringing their new consciousness into a very difficult situation. This is part of what you have agreed to do, all of you, and to be there as a type of human angel, bringing a new light to difficult human situations. You have been called there at some level by a human or sometimes by a group of humans who is calling out for resolution, who is calling out to the angels, or what you call heavenly angels, for guidance, and you are responding by just being there. Some of you have a hard time understanding how just your presence can change an entire situation. You think you have to be doing something, that you have to be active or negotiating or doing something. Just being there is so important and provides so much potential. While you can also be there on a physical level, Chambra in general can also be in places on a consciousness level, like exactly what we talked about today with Nayu, ability to go in to feel energies. By having this type of non-physical ability to go into situations, you're going to find yourself called into consciousness situations where you're not necessarily physically there, but your consciousness will be called in. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to mend fences. You don't need to inflict the energy of peace or anything else. Just being there with your consciousness and new energy changes the way the old energy elements, the old energy vibration is working and responding. So, um, for your children, just being there. This is what we call the standard. Just being there. Assuming the I am presence. Knowing that all things are truly in perfect order. Thank you. Yes?
And I wouldn't apologize even if it was. For the Shambra who choose to have this kind of experience, since we're on the topic of feelings,
Yes.
based on my experience, what I'm going to put out as a heads up for you, when I had this experience, what was, I think, maybe even more profound than the experience itself was how dissociated people were from their feelings and the denial of their feelings about it. And I actually went into kind of a post-traumatic shock for like 3 days because everybody around me was going, you didn't get blown up, what's the big deal? You know, you're fine. And I'm going, hey, what are you doing? But nobody got it. So if you go through this and people around you don't get it, it's not you. Really, you're okay. You're a feeling being, and maybe people around you are not connected at that level. So if you have that experience, you're okay, and I want you to know that.
Absolutely. And that reminds me to remind everybody, you can be in very intense and dramatic situations, and you can absolutely feel them like you were experiencing it. You don't have to own it. It's not yours. And you can return back to your essence, your presence, simply through the I am. I am that I am. You still will have felt everything and experienced it, but it doesn't become part of your book. It doesn't become just another chapter in your life. You see, there's beauty to it, the ability to really feel something, but not own it. Now, some Shambhara have thought that meant that they don't actually physically or mentally feel the confusion or at a deep level feel the spiritual spiral. No, you're going to feel those. You're just going to remind yourself that they're not yours. They're experiences. They're not yours. Excellent. Thank you.
Tobias St. Germain. I'm Dora from Hungary, and we wait for you in Maine. Hungary is a strange and contradictory place, and I hate it and love it. I want to go away and stay at the same time. Can you tell me something about the situation of this country from your point of view? And if you could tell me anything about my personal situation in this religion process, I'd be so thankful because I feel so lost at this moment. We love you all so much. Dora.
Dear Dora, we're going to come to visit, and both Tobias and I will be there with you. I'll give you a little bit right now that Hungary is a wounded land, wounded people, very proud, but yet very wounded. Hungary is what I would call a victim country, but yet very strong in its own right. Feels like it had its arms and legs removed from it, and it's time somebody gave those back. Hungary also has tremendous potential to, leapfrog the traditional patterns, historic patterns that emerging or awakening countries go through. So we're coming here specifically to address some of these issues. As far as your work,